Hello everyone. In this video, I'll explain why I didn't enroll in the FSB Academy back in the day. Let's start from the beginning. I was in 10th grade, or maybe in 11th grade, I don't remember. Some people came to us and started offering jobs as FSB agents. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration because the position was initially supposed to be like that, a student employee, meaning you enroll in the law program at the FSB Academy. And starting from the second year, you begin to work at the same time. It's either a day or two, or maybe 3 days, I don't remember anymore. The job involves standing at the checkpoint where Lubyanka is, where all sorts of government agencies are agencies, basically, and letting cars through. But you could study for free at the law faculty in Moscow at the FSB Academy. I was really excited at that time. I think it's like Moscow. Well, yes, it's an hour-and-a-half drive from there to Moscow. I thought if the job was short, they offered money, I could earn, study, and maybe later connect with the FSB for something interesting. So I could earn money, study, and then maybe I could have some connections with the FSB, somehow. Maybe I could get involved in some interesting projects while working in government agencies. Maybe I could get involved in something interesting, like working on some projects. Yes, working in government agencies. So first you had to take exams and pass tests. So there was a story. There was geography and there were some other subjects. I studied for 2 months. I even had personal tutors. I studied, I read a lot, I really did. Besides school assignments, I really worked hard. I spent several hours a day, mainly because my history was lacking. I read a lot of material specifically about World War II, but for me it was for my development. In the end, first you had to pass the physical training. I passed it. Then I had to take tests in history and geography, which I was preparing for. I passed that too, even though I stuttered. It was tough, but I did it. And then I had to go through an interview with a psychologist who works at the FSB on Lubyanka. I still remember some floor, I don't remember, but in general I was going up the doors with these big oak ones. Yes. So I got really scared. I was still stuttering a lot back then. And it turned out that I just couldn't connect with the psychologist at all. It felt like my breath had stopped. So he was asking me something and he did it in such a quiet, calm voice like, "Well, Alexander, have a seat. Tell me what happened with you. Tell us about your life there. Why do you want to work with us? What prospects do you see for yourself?" And I started to stutter so much there, even more than usual. So in the end, I was denied this training for employment because someone who stutters, well, it's like a barrier. They can lift the barrier, but they have to report over the radio, like, "This is such and such vehicle," asking whether to let it in or not, and so on, greeting people. And what if you stutter? In general, they didn't take me. Well, I was a bit upset at that time. Then I realized that maybe it was for the best, that I didn't become an FSB officer, because for me it was like that romance, like about the FSB, it's cool there, maybe you should start with that. As a lawyer, you'll stand there for 4 years at the barrier lifting it, right? Then you'll start working in some office, maybe something sticky. Business trips will be interesting, there will be intelligence, maybe there will be intelligence, but most likely there will be certain people involved in the intelligence. Certain people are involved in intelligence. So I was really fired up about it, but then it didn't work out. Why? Because of my stuttering, and by the way, I had a lot of jobs before I turned 23. I couldn't get those jobs because I stuttered. I tried several times, both calling and going to interviews, where I stuttered a lot. I understand why they told me that. They told me we would call you back. Because basically, if I were the employer and someone who stuttered a lot came to me, I would lean towards more conversational roles. I would go for more conversational roles. For example, a sales manager. Or then I went to consultants from Fisno, Eurocell, Altelecom. Those were top companies. I believe my skills could succeed if my speech failed me. But based on my brains, my hard work, my intellect and other things, I really felt that, I could have made it if my speech hadn't let me down. She kept messing up all the time, especially at interviews, so it just didn't work out. I could only get jobs as a loader, a security guard, or a merchandiser. Here, These are temporary projects. That's why, because of my speech, I couldn't afford to get a decent job in different companies. But everything changed when I finally managed to understand, realize, and work on my speech, work on my weak points. I started to speak normally. Then I started getting hired as a sales representative and as a supervisor, and then as a manager in various projects, including as a sales manager and for warm calling and for cold sales. I worked in different companies, but if my speech hadn't changed, I wouldn't have been able to do that. After turning 23, I couldn't afford it, just like I couldn't afford to study and earn at the FSB Academy, which I was really interested in back when I was 17. After turning 23, unfortunately, I wouldn't have been able to afford it, just like I couldn't afford to study and earn at the FSB Academy, which I was really interested in back when I was 17. And also, by the way, just to study and earn at the FSB Academy, which I was really interested in at that time when I was 17. And also, by the way, for my first interview, let's say, I arrived at Lubyanka with my mom. Yeah, I can't remember if I was 17 or 16 years old. But I clearly remember that I had to first dial the number, that is, there was a phone, and say that such and such had arrived for an interview, for a small meeting, to get some tasks. I had a specific name there. The number, that is, there was a phone, and to say that such and such had arrived for an interview, for a small meeting, to get some tasks. I had a specific name there. I called myself at first. I remember that day perfectly. I just had to say a few things there. Well, literally 2 or 3 sentences. Such and such, please call such and such to the phone. Yeah. Such and such has arrived. I stood there for about 5 minutes, pressing the phone, and couldn't get the words out. I don't remember what the words were, but I remember I was pressing. My mom sees me, and I've already turned away, you know, I'm just pressing and pressing. In the end, it got to the point where my mom picked up the phone for me and called. There was some Alexander Degilevich, I don't remember who it was, but I just couldn't get the name out at all. Because FSB Lubyanka, job interview. So they came down for us, we went up and told everything. But even then, to be honest, if I were that FSB officer, there was either a captain conducting the interview, I don't remember, or a major. It was like a preliminary selection process. He had already given me an assignment then. Basically, I had to study history, geography, and some other subjects, some specific areas where I needed to have a good understanding. And there will be an exam in 2 or 3 months. To be honest, he could already see back then that I stuttered a lot. He should have told me back then, sorry, you're not a good fit for us. Give it a try. They should have told me I wasn't suitable from the start. But then he said, okay, try, of course, we'll have to meet, do something, that's it. So ideally, to save my own time, they could have told me at the first stage that I wasn't a good fit, so I wouldn't even get my hopes up. But I was hoping, as we say, in order not to be too disappointed, you need to not to get too enchanted. I got enchanted back then about the FSB opportunities. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't go to the FSB. Everyone has their own path. That's it. It was really hard for me. Basically, even back in school, so to speak, I was either trying to get into something, either studying or working. But that's my life path. And in order to get rid of my stuttering, to start understanding my problem areas, to start speaking normally with someone, using my own intonation, without substituting words and without slowing down my speech, you need to learn this. And then you'll be able to afford a lot of things for yourself that right now, unfortunately, you can't afford. Have you had any similar experiences that prevented you from getting a job? Or you couldn't start a relationship with a girl you liked because of your stuttering? You can write this in the comments. It will be interesting to read. But back then, I firmly told myself that this stuttering wouldn't be with me forever. That's the job as an FSB officer that I didn't take on back then. Back then, unfortunately, it's not sadness really, it's not a loss of losses, it just means, well, it's not meant for me. I told myself that someday I would grow up, get rid of my stuttering, and I would be able to speak normally. I will be able to speak like everyone else and even better. Somewhere more convincingly, firmly, thoughtfully, briefly, concisely, and so on. I did it. And if I hadn't had faith in myself back then, not even knowing exactly what I needed to do, then most likely everything would have stayed at the same level. Faith, the key to success. Believe in yourself and you will definitely succeed sooner or later. Of course, with the right effort and a normal strategy and tactics, fulfilling your tasks, everything will work out. Fulfilling your tasks, everything will work out.